When I got sick, my children fought over my belongings, so I changed my will during treatment. I was lying in my hospital bed, eyes closed, breathing shallow, when I heard my daughter Tanya whisper to her brothers just outside my room, "Mama's got that china cabinet from Grandmama. I want that. Y'all can split everything else, but that's mine." My heart cracked right down the middle. "Girl, please," my oldest son Darnell hissed back. "That cabinet's worth at least $5,000. We selling that and splitting the money 3 ways. You can take her jewelry if you want something to remember her by." I kept my eyes shut, kept my breathing steady like the nurses taught me during my panic attacks. My own children, my babies. Standing outside my hospital room at Mercy General, dividing up my life like I was already in the ground. "What about the house?" That was Quincy, my youngest. Always was about the money. "We need to talk to a realtor soon as, get it listed while the market's hot." Soon as I'm dead, he meant. Soon as they put their mama in the dirt. I felt something break inside me that wouldn't ever heal right again. Not the way it was before. My nurse Yvette came in right then, bless her heart, and my children scattered like roaches when the light comes on. She checked my IV, adjusted my pillow, touched my forehead with hands so gentle it made me want to cry. "How you feeling today, Mrs. Caldwell?" she asked, her voice soft and kind. I opened my eyes and looked at this young woman who'd been taking care of me for 3 weeks now. She didn't know me from Adam, but she treated me like I was her own grandmother. She braided my hair when it got tangled. She brought me real food from her mama's kitchen when the hospital food made me sick. She sat with me during the scary nights when I couldn't sleep, when the pain got bad, telling me stories about her little girl at home. "I'm tired, baby," I whispered. And Lord, I was. Not just sick tired, soul tired. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to where this all started, so you can understand how I got here. How a woman who gave everything for her children ended up listening to them pick over her bones while her heart was still beating. My name is Bernice Caldwell. Folks call me Bernie. I'm 71 years old, and I raised 3 children by myself after their daddy died in a construction accident when Quincy was just 2 years old. That was 1982. I was 33, widowed, with 3 babies and a mortgage I didn't know how I'd pay. But I did it. I worked 2 jobs, days at the post office, nights cleaning offices downtown. I made sure my children had everything they needed. Maybe not everything they wanted, but everything they needed. New shoes for school, hot meals every night, a clean home, a mama who loved them fierce and taught them right from wrong, or so I thought. I put all 3 of them through college, used my retirement savings, took out loans, worked overtime until my feet swelled up so bad I had to sleep with them elevated. Darnell got his business degree, Tanya got her nursing degree, though she don't work as a nurse no more, married a man with money and became a housewife. Quincy got his degree in marketing and got a fancy job in Atlanta. They all did good for themselves. I was proud. I thought I'd done right by them. Thought I'd raised them to be good people, not just successful people. My house in the Sweet Auburn district, the one they were already planning to sell. I bought that house in 1995 with money I saved for 15 years. It wasn't much when I got it, but I fixed it up real nice. That garden in the back, I planted every rose bush, every tomato plant. That porch, I painted it every other year in the spring. The hardwood floors, I refinished those myself on my hands and knees, watching YouTube videos to learn how. That house was my pride, my accomplishment, my legacy. I thought I'd leave it to my children as a blessing, a foundation they could build on. I retired from the post office at 65 with a small pension. Not much, but enough to live on if I was careful. I had my Social Security, I had my house paid off, I had my savings, about $40,000 I'd scraped together over the years. I had Mama's china cabinet, her wedding ring, some other jewelry. A few nice things. My children visited regular at first. Sunday dinners were our thing. I'd cook a big meal, fried chicken, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, cornbread, sweet potato pie. After church, they'd all come over. My grandchildren, too. Darnell had 2 boys, Zion and Elijah. Tanya had a daughter, Aaliyah. Quincy wasn't married, no kids. We'd eat and laugh and talk. I'd send them home with leftovers in Tupperware containers they never returned. It was good. I was happy. I thought they were happy too. But looking back now, I see the signs I missed. The way Tanya would walk through my house, touching things, asking where I got this or that. "Mama, you remember when you're gone? I want this, right?" Like it was a joke, but it wasn't. The way Darnell would ask about my finances. "Mama, you sure you're managing okay? You need help with your bills? Maybe you should add me to your bank account just in case." The way Quincy stopped coming as much. "Too busy," he said, but he'd call every few months asking if I could loan him money. "Just till next month, Mama. I'm good for it." He never was. The Sunday dinners spread out, once a month, every other month, then just holidays. Then just Thanksgiving and Christmas, and even those felt like obligations. I told myself they were busy. They had their own lives. That's what you want for your children, right? For them to grow up and not need you anymore? But Lord, it hurt. I had friends, though. My church family at Abundant Grace Missionary Baptist. I'd been a member there for 40 years. I sang in the choir until my knees got too bad to stand that long. I helped with the food bank. I went to Bible study every Wednesday. Pastor Hill and the congregation, they were my people. They checked on me. They cared. My neighbor, Mrs. Opal Green, she's 82 and sharp as a tack. We'd sit on her porch some evenings drinking sweet tea and watching the neighborhood. She'd known me since I moved in, knew my struggles, knew my children. "Bernie," she told me more than once, "you gave those kids too much, made life too easy for them. They don't know struggle, so they don't appreciate blessing." I'd defend them. "They're good kids, Opal, they just busy." She'd give me that look, that knowing look. But she'd let it go. Then 6 months ago, I started feeling bad. Real bad. Tired all the time. Pain in my stomach. Losing weight without trying. I ignored it at first. You get to be my age, something always hurts. But it got worse. I finally went to the doctor in February. Dr. Harrison, he'd been my doctor for 20 years. Good man. He ran tests. Lots of tests. Blood work, scans, more tests. Stage 3 colon cancer. I sat in that office and heard those words, and the whole world went quiet. Cancer. The thing that took my mama. The thing that took my sister Diane. Now it had come for me. Dr. Harrison talked about treatment options, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation maybe. He talked about survival rates and 5-year outlooks and quality of life. I heard maybe half of it. My ears were ringing too loud. I called my children from the parking lot. Darnell answered on the 4th ring, sounded distracted. "Hey, Ma, what's up? I'm in a meeting." "I got cancer, baby," I said, and my voice cracked. "The doctor says it's bad." Silence. Then, Oh, Mama, I'll call you back, okay? I gotta finish this meeting." He didn't call back that day. He texted around 8 p.m. "Sorry, Ma, crazy day. We'll talk soon." Tanya cried when I told her. Real tears. I thought she was upset for me, scared for me. "Oh, Mama, no. What are we gonna do?" We, like it was happening to her. Quincy said, "Dang. Ma, that's rough. You got good insurance though, right? It's gonna be expensive." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What do you need?" Just worried about the money. I should have known then. I had the surgery in March. They removed part of my colon. The The recovery was hard. Harder than anything I'd been through. The pain was bad. I couldn't do much for myself for a while. I needed help. The children took turns at first. Darnell came by a few times, but he'd sit on his phone the whole time, checking emails. "Sorry, Ma. Work emergency." His wife Simone, I should call her by name, his wife Keisha. She came once, looked uncomfortable the whole time, didn't touch nothing, acted like she might catch something. Tanya came more often, but she'd complain. About the drive. About how hard it was to see me like this. About how stressful it all was for her. She'd clean up a little, make me some soup, but she'd sigh real loud the whole time. Like taking care of her own mama was such a burden. Quincy didn't come at all, sent flowers once, called every week or so. "You hanging in there, Ma?" The church stepped up more than my own children. Sister Rochelle brought me meals. Deacon Morris mowed my lawn. Pastor Hill came by weekly to pray with me and just sit with me. And Mrs. Opal next door, she checked on me every single day. But I needed more help than they could give. I needed nursing care, help with medications, wound care, getting dressed, bathing, all the things that used to be simple and now felt impossible. That's when Yvette came into my life. The home health agency sent her. She arrived on a Tuesday morning in April, knocked on my door all professional with her nurse bag and clipboard. She was maybe 35, pretty brown-skinned woman with kind eyes and box braids pulled back neat. "Mrs. Caldwell? I'm Yvette Baptiste. I'll be your home health nurse." She took care of me like I was precious, like I mattered. She helped me bathe without making me feel ashamed. She changed my bandages and managed my medications. She helped me walk when I got strong enough. She made me laugh when I wanted to cry. She told me about her daughter, Amari. 8 years old, smart as a whip. Yvette was raising her alone. The daddy wasn't in the picture. She worked hard, went to school at night to get her bachelor's degree. She was trying to build a better life. She reminded me of myself at that age, working hard, sacrificing, doing everything for her child. "My mama helps me with Amari," she told me one day while helping me into my favorite chair by the window. "I don't know what I'd do without her. She keeps her when I work nights, takes her to school, loves her like crazy." "That's what mamas do," I said. "We show up for our babies." "Yes, ma'am," Yvette said. "Mama's there for me no matter what. I hope Amari knows how blessed she is. I hope when I'm your age, she'll be there for me like my mama's there for me now." Something in my chest squeezed tight. The chemotherapy started in May. Every other week, I'd go sit in that treatment center with poison dripping into my veins, trying to kill the cancer before it killed me. Yvette drove me to most of my appointments. She'd sit with me during the long hours, holding my hand when the nausea got bad, telling me stories to distract me. My children came to maybe 2 appointments total, too busy, too hard to watch, too upsetting. But they started calling more, asking questions. "Ma, you got all your paperwork in order? You know, just in case?" That was Darnell. "Mama, where do you keep your important documents? Your deed and stuff? I should know where that is." That was Tanya. "Ma, you got a will, right? Everything's sorted out?" That was Quincy. Just in case. Just in case I died, they meant. I did have a will. Made it years ago with a lawyer, Mr. Henry Davidson. Simple will. Everything split 3 ways between my children. The house, the savings, everything. Equal shares because I loved them equal. Or I had loved them equal. Past tense. By June, I was doing better. The cancer was responding to treatment. Dr. Harrison was pleased. "You're a fighter, Bernie," he said. "Keep it up." But I was tired. So tired. And the treatment made me weak. I spent a lot of time in bed. A lot of time just trying to get through each day. That's when my children started circling like vultures. Darnell came by one Saturday, walked through the house like he was doing an appraisal. Took pictures of Mama's china cabinet with his phone. "Just for memories, Ma," he said when I asked what he was doing. Tanya brought her daughter Aaliyah. That child is sweet, only 12 years old. And while Aaliyah sat with me, Tanya was in my bedroom. I heard drawers opening. "Just looking for an extra blanket for Aaliyah, Mama," she called out when I asked. She wasn't looking for no blanket. She was going through my jewelry box. I found it open later. Things moved around. Quincy came by talking about how much houses in the neighborhood were selling for. "This area's getting hot, Ma. Houses going for 300,000-400,000. You sitting on a gold mine." My home. The place I'd lived for almost 30 years. My refuge. My sanctuary. He saw it as a gold mine, as dollar signs. I started seeing them different. Started hearing what they were really saying. Started understanding what Mrs. Opal had been trying to tell me all along. My children didn't love me. They loved what I had, what I could give them, what they'd inherit when I was gone. And they were getting impatient. I had to go back in the hospital in late June. Complications from the treatment. My blood counts were off. I was dehydrated. Dr. Harrison admitted me to Mercy General to get me stabilized, get some fluids and nutrients in me. Adjust my medications. I was there for a week. Yvette came to see me every day after her other patients. Brought me good food, braided my hair, read to me, prayed with me. My children came twice, together. That should have been my first warning. They never did nothing together unless they were planning something. They stood around my bed looking uncomfortable, asked how I was feeling, said the doctors said I was doing okay, said they'd let me rest. Then they left. And I heard them in the hallway. That's when I heard them dividing up my belongings, my life, my legacy. Fighting over the china cabinet, planning to sell my house, talking about my jewelry. I laid there, heartbreaking, tears sliding down into my pillow. And I knew what I had to do. When Yvette came that evening, I was sitting up in bed, clear-eyed and decided. "Baby," I said, "I need you to help me with something, and I need you to keep it secret." She sat down, concerned. "Mrs. Caldwell, what's wrong?" "I need to get in touch with a lawyer," I said. "I need to change my will, and I need to do it before my children find out." Yvette's eyes went wide. She opened her mouth, closed it, then quietly asked, "Are you sure?" "I heard them," I said, and my voice broke. "I heard my babies out in that hallway, dividing up my things like I'm already dead. Like I'm nothing. Like everything I did for them, everything I sacrificed, it don't mean nothing." Yvette took my hand. Didn't say I was wrong. Didn't tell me I misunderstood. She'd seen my children. She knew. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. "I got a lawyer, Mr. Leonard Graves. His number's in my phone, in my purse. Call him. Tell him I need to see him right away. Tell him it's urgent. And Yvette?" I looked her in the eyes. "Don't tell nobody. Not the nurses, not the staff. Nobody." She nodded. "I understand." That night, she made the call. Mr. Graves, a good man, been practicing law for 40 years, did work for folks in the community. He came to the hospital the next day. Walked in wearing a suit, carrying his briefcase, looking official. My children weren't there. They were busy. Always too busy. "Bernie," Mr. Graves said, sitting beside my bed, "Yvette said you need to change your will. You sure about this?" I told him everything. What I'd heard, what I'd seen, how my children had been acting, the questions about my paperwork, the way they walked through my house like they were shopping. His face got hard. He'd seen this before. Seen greedy children circling aging parents like sharks. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "I want to leave everything to Yvette. The house, the savings, everything. My children get nothing." "Bernie, they get nothing," I repeated, stronger this time. "They made their choice. They showed me who they are. I'm believing them." Mr. Graves pulled out papers, started writing, asked me questions, made sure I was of sound mind. Lord knows I was. Sound mind and broken heart. We worked out the details. Everything to Yvette Baptiste. The house, the bank accounts, the furniture, Mama's china cabinet, my jewelry, all of it. Every single thing. I did leave my grandchildren something. Set up small trusts for Zion, Elijah, and Aaliyah. 10,000 each to be accessed when they turned 25, and because they were innocent in all this, they were still sweet, still loved their grandma. But their parents? They'd get nothing but a letter explaining why. Mr. Graves brought 2 hospital social workers as witnesses. They came in, verified I was competent, watched me sign. It was legal. It was binding. It was done. I laid back against my pillows, exhausted but relieved. "There's one more thing," I told Mr. Graves. "I don't want them to know yet. I'm getting better. Dr. Harrison says I might beat this thing. I want to see their faces when they realize I survived, and they showed their true colors for nothing." Mr. Graves smiled, not a happy smile, a satisfied smile. "I'll keep this locked up tight until you're ready, Bernie." After he left, Yvette came back. I could tell Mr. Graves had talked to her in the hallway. She sat beside me, tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Caldwell, I can't accept—" "Yes, you can," I said. "You treated me with love and respect when my own children couldn't be bothered. You showed up. You cared. You deserve everything I'm giving you." "But your children—" "Made their choice," I said firmly. "Now I've made mine." Yvette cried then, held my hand and cried. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." I got out of the hospital 3 days later, went home to my house. Yvette still came to take care of me. We didn't talk about the will. We just went on like normal. My children called to check on me. Short calls, distracted calls. "You doing okay, Ma?" "Yeah, baby, I'm hanging in there." "Okay, good. Love you. Gotta go." They didn't know, didn't suspect. They thought I was still just their sick mama with stuff they'd inherit soon. I started getting stronger. By July, I could walk without help. By August, I could cook again. By September, Dr. Harrison said the cancer was in remission. Not gone. Cancer's never really gone. But quiet. Sleeping. I'd beat it. At least for now. My children were happy when I told them. "That's great, Ma." But I heard something else in their voices, too. Disappointment, frustration. Their inheritance wasn't coming as soon as they thought. I kept up the act, though. Played weaker than I was. Let them think I was still fragile, still dying eventually, still their ticket to money. And I watched them, watched how they behaved, waited to see if any of them would prove me wrong, show me I'd made a mistake. They didn't. In October, Darnell asked me about adding him to my bank accounts again. "Just to make things easier, Ma. So I can help you pay bills." I had $40,000 in savings. He wanted access. "I'll think about it, baby," I said. In November, Tanya brought up the holidays. "Mama, maybe we should have Thanksgiving at my house this year. You're still not strong enough to cook for everybody." I always hosted Thanksgiving. Always. It was my tradition, my joy, and she wanted to take it from me because I was too weak. "We'll see," I told her. Quincy called in December asking to borrow $5,000. "It's an investment opportunity, Ma. I'll pay you back triple." "Baby, I don't have that kind of money to spare," I lied. "Come on, Ma. I know you got savings. It's a sure thing." A sure thing. My baby boy wanted to gamble with my money. "I can't, Quincy. I'm sorry." He got mad, actually raised his voice at me. "You know what, Ma? Fine. Never mind. I'll figure it out myself." That hurt worse than the cancer ever did. By Christmas, I was done pretending, done waiting, done hoping they'd change. I called Mr. Graves. "I'm ready," I told him. "I want to tell them. I want them to know what they lost." "You sure, Bernie? Once you do this, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure," I said. "It's time they learned that actions have consequences." We set it up for the day after Christmas. I invited all 3 of my children to my house, told them I had something important to discuss, something about my estate. They came quick, real quick, probably thought I was dying again, probably thought they were about to get their inheritance. They had no idea what was coming. I sat in my favorite chair, the one by the window where I could see my garden. I was dressed nice, had my hair done, looked healthy and strong because I was. My children sat on the couch, looking at me expectantly. Darnell in his expensive suit, Tanya in her designer clothes, Quincy with his phone in his hand, always on that phone. Mr. Graves stood beside me, briefcase in hand. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice steady and strong. "I asked you here because I have some news about my will." Tanya leaned forward. "Mama, you don't need to worry about that now. You're doing so much better." "I changed it," I said simply. "Back in June, when I was in the hospital, I changed my will." Silence. Confused looks. "What do you mean you changed it?" Darnell asked slowly. "I mean I heard you," I said, and I let all the hurt and anger show in my voice. "I heard all 3 of you in that hospital hallway, standing outside my room while I was sick, fighting over my china cabinet and my house and my jewelry like I was already in the ground." Tanya's face went white. Quincy looked down. Darnell opened his mouth but nothing came out. "I heard you planning to sell my house before my body was even cold. I watched you go through my things. I listened to you ask about my bank accounts and my paperwork and my will. And I realized something." I stood up, looked at each of them. "You don't love me. You love my stuff. You love what I can give you. So I decided to give it all to someone who actually cares about me." "Mama, wait," Tanya started. "Everything goes to Yvette Baptiste," I said. "My nurse. The woman who took care of me when you couldn't be bothered. The house, the savings, Mama's china cabinet, all of it. She gets everything." The room exploded. Darnell jumped up from the couch like I'd slapped him. "You can't do that. That's our inheritance. We're your children." "And she's a stranger." Tanya's voice was shrill, panicked. "Mama, you can't leave everything to some nurse you barely know. She probably manipulated you, took advantage of you when you were sick and weak." "Don't you dare," I said, my voice cutting through her excuses like a knife. "Don't you dare talk about Yvette like that. That woman showed me more love in 3 months than you 3 showed me in 3 years. Quincy finally looked up from his phone, his face twisted with anger. "This is crazy. You're not thinking straight. The cancer, the medications, they messed with your head." Mr. Graves stepped forward, his voice calm and professional. "Mrs. Caldwell was of completely sound mind when she made these changes. I verified her competency myself, as did 2 independent witnesses. The will is legal and binding." "We'll fight it," Darnell said, pointing his finger at Mr. Graves. "We'll contest it in court. You can't just give away our inheritance to some random woman." "It's not your inheritance," I said, standing up to my full height despite my children towering over me. "It's my property, my house, my money. I worked for it, I saved it, I built it, and I can leave it to whoever I damn well please." They'd never heard me curse before. It shocked them into silence. "I gave you everything," I continued, my voice shaking now with emotion. "I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I sacrificed my health, my retirement, my own dreams so you could have yours. I loved you with everything in me, and the minute I got sick, you started picking over my bones like I was already dead." "Mama, we weren't—" Tanya tried, tears streaming down her face now. But they looked like crocodile tears to me. Fake. Manipulative. "Yes, you were," I said. "I heard you. I saw you. And even after that, I watched you, waited to see if any of you would prove me wrong. Show me some genuine love or care. But you didn't. Darnell, you wanted access to my bank accounts to help me. Tanya, you went through my jewelry box. Quincy, you tried to borrow money from your sick mother for some investment scheme. Quincy had the decency to look ashamed, but Darnell and Tanya were still angry, still fighting. You know what the saddest part is? I asked, sitting back down because my legs were shaking. If you had just loved me. If you had just been there for me, cared about me as a person and not a paycheck, you would have gotten everything anyway. But you couldn't even do that. So you're punishing us, Darnell said bitterly. Punishing your own children because we weren't perfect. No, I said quietly. I'm rewarding someone who was kind to me when I needed kindness. There's a difference. Mr. Graves cleared his throat. The will does include provisions for your grandchildren. Small trusts they'll access at 25. Mrs. Caldwell wanted to make sure they were taken care of. How much? Tanya asked immediately. 10,000 each, Mr. Graves said. Tanya laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. 10,000? That's nothing. That's insulting. It's more than you deserve, I said. And it's for them, not you. You won't touch a penny of it. We'll contest this, Darnell repeated. We'll get lawyers. Real lawyers. We'll prove she manipulated you. Try it, Mr. Graves said calmly. You'll lose, and you'll waste a lot of money in the process. I've been practicing law for 40 years. This will is airtight. My children stood there, faces red, breathing hard. I could see the wheels turning in their heads. The calculations, the schemes. Get out, I said quietly. What? Tanya looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Get out of my house. All of you. Now. Mama, please, Quincy started. Now, I shouted, and they jumped. Get out and don't come back until you can look at me and see a human being instead of a bank account. They left, slammed the door behind them. I heard their angry voices in the driveway, heard car doors slam, heard them drive away. Then I collapsed back in my chair and sobbed. Mr. Graves put a gentle hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, Bernie. Then why does it hurt so much? I asked through my tears. Because you're a good mother, he said, even when your children aren't good children. After he left, I sat alone in my house, in the silence, and let myself grieve. Not for the inheritance they'd lost, but for the relationship we'd never have. For the children I thought I'd raised versus the adults they'd become. For the family that was broken beyond repair. Mrs. Opal came over an hour later. She didn't knock, just used the key I'd given her years ago and walked right in. Found me still sitting in that chair, eyes red and swollen. I saw your children leave, she said, settling into the chair across from me. They looked mad as hornets. I changed my will, I told her. Left everything to Yvette. They didn't take it well. Mrs. Opal was quiet for a moment. Then she reached over and squeezed my hand. Good for you, Bernie. It's about time you put yourself first. Did I do the right thing, Opal? I asked. They're still my children. My babies. Babies grow up, she said wisely. Sometimes they grow up wrong. That's not always on the parent. You did your best. They chose to be greedy. That's on them. We sat together in the quiet, two old women who'd seen too much and lived too long to accept disrespect, even from our own blood. The next few days were hard. My phone rang constantly. Darnell calling to talk sense into me. Tanya calling crying, begging, trying to guilt me. Quincy sending long text messages about how unfair I was being, how hurt he was, how I was tearing the family apart. I didn't answer. Didn't respond. What was there to say that I hadn't already said? Then the lawyers started calling. They'd done it. They'd actually hired an attorney to contest my will, a Mr. Hugh Brennan from some fancy firm downtown. Mr. Graves called me when he got the notice. They're claiming undue influence and diminished capacity, saying Yvette manipulated you while you were sick and vulnerable. I felt my blood pressure rise. That's a lie. I know it is, and we'll prove it. But Bernie, this is going to get ugly. They're going to drag this through court. They're going to say terrible things about you and Yvette. Are you prepared for that? Yes, I said firmly. I'm not backing down. Good. Neither am I. I called Yvette that night. She'd been giving me space since the big revelation, unsure of her place in all this mess. Mrs. Caldwell? She answered on the first ring. Baby, I need you to know something, I said. My children are going to come after you. They're going to say you manipulated me, took advantage of me. They're going to try to make you look like a villain. I know, she said softly. I've been worried about that. Mrs. Caldwell, maybe you should reconsider. I don't want to cause problems with your family. You didn't cause nothing, I interrupted. They did this themselves, and I'm not changing my mind. That house, that money, it's yours. You earned it with your kindness. I just did my job, she protested. No, I said. You went way beyond your job. You cared. That matters. That means everything. She was quiet for a moment. Then, thank you. I promise I'll honor your trust. I'll make you proud. You already have, baby. The Sunday after Christmas, I went back to church for the first time since before I got sick. Walked into Abundant Grace Missionary Baptist with my head held high, wearing my good purple dress and my Sunday hat. The congregation welcomed me, like I'd risen from the dead. Hugs and tears and praise to Jesus. Sister Rochelle held me so tight I could barely breathe. Deacon Morris pumped my hand and said, "Good to have you back, Sister Bernie." Pastor Hill called me up during testimony time. I stood before my church family, my real family, and I told them everything. About the cancer, about my children, about the will, about the lawsuit. I need your prayers, I said, my voice strong and clear. Not that I'll reconcile with my children, but that I'll have the strength to stand firm in my decision, that I won't let guilt make me compromise my dignity. Amen, voices called out. And I need you to pray for Yvette Baptiste. She's a good woman, a good mother, a good nurse. She's about to be dragged through the mud for no reason except she was kind to an old lady. Pray for her strength, too. Pastor Hill came and stood beside me, put his hand on my shoulder. Church, Sister Bernie has been a faithful member of this congregation for 40 years. She has given her time, her money, her love to this community. She has never asked for much in return. Now she's asking for our prayers and our support. Can we give her that? Yes, the church responded as one. Then let's gather around our sister and lift her up right now. They came, all of them. Surrounded me there at the altar and laid hands on me and prayed. Prayed for my strength, my peace, my vindication. Prayed for Yvette. Prayed that justice would prevail. I cried through all of it. But these were different tears than the ones I'd cried alone in my house. These were healing tears. After church, Mrs. Opal invited me and Pastor Hill and his wife, First Lady Corinne, to her house for dinner. We sat around her table eating pot roast and talking about the situation. Those children ought to be ashamed, First Lady Corinne said, shaking her head, after all you did for them. The Lord sees everything, Pastor Hill said. He knows the truth, and the truth will come to light. But what about the court case? I asked. They've got some expensive lawyer. What if nothing? Mrs. Opal interrupted. Bernie, you got the truth on your side. You got witnesses, you got documentation, and you got a whole church full of people who'll testify to your character and your mental state. That's right, Pastor Hill agreed. We'll all testify if we need to, every single one of us. I felt some of the weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't alone. I had people who loved me, who saw me as more than what I could give them. The case moved slowly. That's how the legal system works, Mr. Graves explained. Lots of paperwork and filings and motions. We had a court date set for March, 3 months away. In the meantime, My children kept trying. Darnell showed up at my house one Saturday in January. I almost didn't let him in, but curiosity got the better of me. He sat on my couch, the same couch where I'd told them about the will, and he looked tired. Worn down. "Ma," he said, "can we talk? Really talk?" "About what?" I asked, staying standing, keeping my distance. "About us. About this situation." He rubbed his face. "Look, I know we messed up. I know we shouldn't have been talking about your stuff while you were sick. That was wrong." "Yes, it was. But Ma, you gotta understand. We were scared. We thought you were dying. We were trying to process that, and maybe we handled it wrong, but our hearts were in the right place." "Stop," I said. "Don't do that. Don't try to rewrite history. Your hearts were not in the right place. You weren't grieving. You were greedy." "That's not fair." "It's completely fair," I said. "Darnell, if you were really scared of losing me, you would have been in that hospital room holding my hand, not in the hallway dividing up my china cabinet." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Drop the lawsuit and we'll drop ours." There it was, the real reason for the visit. "No," I said simply. "Ma, come on. Be reasonable. We're family." "Family shows up," I said. "Family cares. Family loves you for who you are, not what you have. You want to be my family? Then act like it." "We are acting like it. We're here, we're trying—" "You're here because you want my money," I said. "The minute I told you it was going to someone else, suddenly you want to reconcile. Where was this effort before? Where was this concern when I was going through chemo alone?" He didn't have an answer for that. "Get out, Darnell," I said quietly. "And don't come back with fake apologies and manipulation. If you ever want a real relationship with me, it starts with taking responsibility for how you treated me. Real responsibility, not excuses." He left without another word. Tanya tried next. She brought Aaliyah with her, which was low, using my grandbaby as a weapon. But Aaliyah, sweet child, she ran to me and hugged me tight. "Grandma, I missed you so much." I held her, breathed in her strawberry shampoo, felt my heart squeeze. "I missed you too, baby girl." "Are you all better now?" she asked, looking up at me with those big brown eyes. "I'm getting there, sweetheart." Tanya stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. "Aaliyah wanted to see you. She's been asking about you." "She's always welcome here," I said, knowing what Tanya was trying to do. She was trying to use my love for my grandbaby against me. We had cookies and milk, Aaliyah and me. She told me about school, about her friends, about the book she was reading, normal grandma and grandbaby stuff. It felt good. I'd missed it. Tanya sat there watching, calculating. After Aaliyah went to use the bathroom, Tanya leaned forward. "Mama, she needs her grandmother. You're going to let this thing with the will destroy your relationship with your grandbabies?" "I'm not destroying anything," I said. "You are. You're the one who decided to sue me." "Because you're giving everything to a stranger." "She's not a stranger to me," I said. "She's been more family than you have." "That's not fair, Mama. I have a life. I have responsibilities." "So did I said. "I had 2 jobs and 3 children, and I still showed up. Still made time. Still put you first." Aaliyah came back then, and we didn't talk about it anymore. But when they left, Tanya's parting words were cold. "You're choosing that nurse over your own grandchildren. I hope you can live with that." She didn't bring Aaliyah back after that. Quincy didn't visit. He just kept sending messages, some apologetic, some angry, all manipulative. I stopped reading them after a while. February came. I got a notice that I had to give a deposition, had to sit in a room with my children's lawyer and answer questions about my mental state, my relationship with Yvette, my reasons for changing the will. Mr. Graves prepared me. They're going to try to make you seem confused or manipulated. Stay calm. Tell the truth. Don't let them rattle you. The deposition was in a conference room at Mr. Brennan's fancy office downtown. All glass and chrome and expensive furniture. Darnell, Tanya, and Quincy were there with their lawyer. Yvette was there too, looking nervous in her best dress. Mr. Brennan was a white man in his 50s, slick suit, practiced smile. He reminded me of a snake. "Mrs. Caldwell," he began after all the formalities, "can you describe your mental state during your cancer treatment?" "I was sick," I said simply, but my mind was clear. "You were on pain medications, correct? Strong pain medications?" "Yes, but they didn't affect my thinking." "Are you sure about that? Pain medications can cause confusion, memory loss." "My memory is fine," I said firmly. "I remember everything." He asked about Yvette, how we met, how often she visited, whether she ever suggested I change my will. "She didn't suggest anything," I said. "I made the decision myself after I heard my children fighting over my belongings while I was lying in a hospital bed." "You claim you heard your children discussing your estate, but you were sick, medicated. Are you certain you didn't misunderstand?" "I know what I heard," I said, looking directly at Darnell, Tanya, and Quincy. "I heard them fighting over my china cabinet, heard them planning to sell my house. I heard every word, clear as day." My children looked away. Mr. Brennan tried different angles. Tried to make it seem like Yvette had isolated me from my family, like she'd manipulated me, like I wasn't thinking clearly. But I shut down every attempt. I was clear. I was firm. I was telling the truth. When it was Yvette's turn, Mr. Brennan went after her hard. "Ms. Baptiste, how much is Mrs. Caldwell paying you to take care of her?" "The Home Health Agency pays me," Yvette said. "Mrs. Caldwell doesn't pay me directly." "But you knew she had assets. A house, savings." "I knew she owned her home, yes. I didn't know about her finances." "Did you suggest she change her will?" "No, I was shocked when she told me." "But you didn't refuse the inheritance." Yvette lifted her chin. "Mrs. Caldwell wanted to leave her estate to someone who cared about her. I do care about her. I was honored. Honored enough to accept hundreds of thousands of dollars from a vulnerable elderly woman." "Objection," Mr. Graves interrupted. "Argumentative." It went on like that for 2 hours. By the end, I was exhausted. Yvette looked close to tears. But we'd held our ground. "That was brutal," Yvette said afterward, sitting in Mr. Graves's office. "That's what they do," Mr. Graves said. "They try to intimidate you, shake your story, but you both did great. The truth came through." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we wait for the court date. We present our case to the judge, and we win." "You sound confident," I said. "I am," he said, "because we have the truth on our side." I went home that night feeling drained but determined. This wasn't over yet. My children were fighting hard for money they never earned. But I was fighting harder for my dignity, my right to decide what happened to my own property. The next Sunday, Pastor Hill preached about the prodigal son. About the son who demanded his inheritance early, wasted it, then came back expecting forgiveness. "But notice," Pastor Hill said, "the father didn't give him more money. He welcomed him back with love, but he didn't reward his bad behavior. There's a difference between forgiveness and foolishness." He caught my eye when he said it. I nodded. After church, a woman I didn't know well approached me, Sister Dee Dee, one of the younger members. "Sister Bernie," she said, "I heard about your situation. I just want you to know, you're doing the right thing. My grandmother did the same thing. Left everything to her caregiver because her children were awful to her. They contested it, but they lost. The will stood." "Really?" I asked, hope rising in my chest. "Really. The judge said competent adults have the right to leave their property to whoever they choose. Your children aren't entitled to anything just because they're your children. Thank you for telling me that, I said, feeling some of my anxiety ease. You're welcome. And Sister Bernie, you're teaching those kids a valuable lesson. Maybe not the one they wanted to learn, but the one they needed. March came. The court date was set for March 15th. The night before, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my babies, about holding them when they were born, teaching them to walk, to read, to ride bikes, birthday parties and school plays and graduations, all the love I'd poured into them. How had it come to this? How had we ended up on opposite sides of a courtroom? But then I remembered that hospital hallway, their voices talking about my things like I was already gone, and I knew I'd made the right choice. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in my best Sunday suit, navy blue, dignified. Mrs. Opal came with me. So did Pastor Hill and First Lady Corinne. So did Sister Rochelle and Deacon Morris. Half my church showed up to support me. Yvette was there too, looking terrified but determined. My children were there with Mr. Brennan, looking expensive and confident. The judge was a black woman in her 60s, Judge Mary Ann Foster. She had kind eyes but a stern face. Mr. Brennan went first. He painted me as a confused old woman, manipulated by a scheming nurse who isolated me from my loving family. He presented evidence of my confusion. The fact that I'd been on pain medication, that I'd been seriously ill, that I'd made a drastic decision while in the hospital. Your Honor, he said, Mrs. Caldwell's children love their mother. They're concerned about her. They believe she was taken advantage of during her most vulnerable time. They're asking the court to set aside this will and restore the previous will, which more fairly represents Mrs. Caldwell's true wishes. Then it was Mr. Graves's turn. He presented my medical records showing I'd been competent. He presented testimony from the hospital social workers who witnessed my signature. He presented character witnesses, Pastor Hill, Mrs. Opal, church members, who testified that I was sharp as a tack, always had been, and then he presented something I didn't know he had. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence a recording from the hospital hallway on June 28th of last year. My heart stopped. A recording? Mr. Graves played it, and there, clear as day, were my children's voices. Mama's got that china cabinet from Grandmama. I want that. We selling that and splitting the money 3 ways. What about the house? We need to talk to a realtor soon as... The courtroom was silent. Judge Foster's face hardened. My children looked like they wanted to disappear. Hospital security cameras have audio in the hallways, Mr. Graves explained. I subpoenaed the footage. This is what Mrs. Caldwell heard while she was lying in her hospital bed, sick and scared. This is why she changed her will. Judge Foster looked at my children with disgust. Then she looked at me. Mrs. Caldwell, would you like to address the court? I stood up, my legs shaking. Yes, Your Honor. I walked to the front, looked at the judge, then turned to look at my children. I worked my whole life for them, I said, my voice breaking. I gave them everything. And they couldn't even wait for me to die before they started fighting over my things. That broke my heart. But you know what? It also opened my eyes. I realized I'd rather leave my legacy to someone who valued me as a person than to people who only valued what I could give them. I sat back down. The courtroom was quiet. Judge Foster didn't take long to decide. I've heard enough, she said. Mrs. Caldwell was clearly of sound mind when she made her decision. She had valid reasons for her decision, and competent adults have the right to dispose of their property as they see fit. The will stands. Case dismissed. The gavel came down. I'd won. My church family erupted in quiet celebration. Yvette burst into tears. Mr. Graves smiled. My children sat there, stunned and defeated. As we filed out of the courtroom, Darnell grabbed my arm. Ma, please, I pulled away. You heard the judge. It's over. We're still your children, Tanya said desperately. Then act like it, I said. Show me you love me for me, not for what I have. Until then, we have nothing to talk about. I walked out of that courthouse with my head held high, surrounded by people who truly loved me. But as we reached the parking lot, Quincy's voice stopped me cold. "You're going to regret this, Ma," he shouted across the lot. "When you're old and sick and dying for real, don't come crying to us. You'll have nobody." I turned around slowly, looked at my youngest child, and said clearly, "Baby, I already have nobody. That's the whole point." His face crumpled. For a moment, I saw my little boy again. The one I used to rock to sleep. The one who used to climb in my bed during thunderstorms. But then his face hardened again, and he turned and walked away. All three of them did. I stood there in the parking lot, watching my children walk out of my life, and even though I'd won, part of me felt like I'd lost everything that mattered. "Come on, Bernie," Mrs. Opal said gently, taking my arm. "Let's go home." We went to my house, my church family and me. Someone brought food, someone else brought sweet tea. We sat around my living room, the room my children had walked through pricing everything, and we celebrated. But I couldn't quite celebrate. Something felt unfinished, unresolved. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in my house and cried. Not for the money or the stuff, but for my children, for the relationship we'd never have, for the grandchildren I might not see again. Around 9 p.m., my doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me. I opened the door to find Aaliyah standing there, tears streaming down her face, with a suitcase at her feet. "Grandma," she sobbed, "can I stay with you? I don't want to live with Mama anymore. She's been so mean since the court thing, and she keeps saying awful things about you, and I told her to stop, but she won't, and we got in a fight, and—" I pulled my grandbaby into my arms and held her while she cried. And that's when I knew everything was about to get a whole lot more complicated. I brought Aaliyah inside and sat her down on the couch, the same couch where this whole mess had started. Her suitcase sat by the door like a statement, like a choice. "Baby, tell me what happened," I said, wiping her tears with my handkerchief. "Mama's been awful since the court case," Aaliyah said, her voice shaking. "She keeps saying you chose money over family, that you're selfish and ungrateful, that you're going to die alone and deserve it." Each word was a knife in my chest. And I told her to stop. I told her you're not like that you're the kindest person I know. And she got so mad at me. She said I'm taking your side against her. She said if I love you so much, maybe I should just go live with you. "So you did," I said softly. "So I did," Aaliyah confirmed, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I'm 12, Grandma. I'm old enough to choose. And I choose you." My heart swelled and broke at the same time. This sweet child, caught in the middle of adult mess she didn't create. "Sweetheart, I love you more than anything, but your mama has legal custody of you. I can't just keep you here without her permission." My phone rang. Tanya. Of course. "Where is she?" Tanya screamed before I could even say hello. "Where's my daughter?" "She's here with me. She's safe. You send her home right now. You can't just take my child." "I didn't take her. She came on her own." "I don't care. Send her home or I'm calling the police." Aaliyah shook her head frantically, grabbing my arm. "Please don't make me go back. Please, Grandma." I looked at this child. This beautiful, innocent child who just wanted to love her grandmother without being made to feel guilty about it. "Tanya," I said calmly, "Aaliyah can stay here tonight. Tomorrow we all sit down and talk like adults. But I'm not sending her back tonight while you're this angry." "You have no right." "I have every right to protect my grandbaby from her mother's tantrum," I said firmly. "She's safe, she's fed, she's loved. That's more than she was getting at your house tonight." I hung up before she could respond. Aaliyah threw her arms around me. "Thank you, Grandma. Thank you." I held her tight, breathing in her strawberry shampoo again, and prayed I was doing the right thing. I called Mr. Graves. Even at 9:30 at night, he answered. "Bernie, everything okay?" I explained the situation. He was quiet for a moment. Legally, Tanya could call the police and they'd make Aaliyah go home. But given that Aaliyah came voluntarily and isn't in danger with you, most officers would encourage the family to work it out themselves first. "Keep her tonight. Tomorrow we'll see about getting a temporary custody arrangement if needed." "Custody? I don't want to take Tanya's child." "You're not taking her. But if Aaliyah is old enough to express a preference, and if there's evidence that staying with her mother is causing emotional distress, a judge might grant you temporary guardianship. At 12, Aaliyah's wishes matter." I thanked him and hung up, feeling overwhelmed. Mrs. Opal came over within minutes of me calling her. She took one look at Aaliyah and shook her head. "These children of yours just don't quit, do they?" "It's not Aaliyah's fault," I said. "I know that, baby," Mrs. Opal said to Aaliyah. "Your grandma's right to keep you here tonight. Let everybody calm down." We made up the guest room for Aaliyah. I found some old pajamas that had belonged to Tanya when she was young. Aaliyah put them on and climbed into bed, looking so small and scared. "Grandma?" she asked as I tucked her in. "Are you really going to die alone like Mama said?" I sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand. "Baby, nobody dies alone when they have people who love them. I got my church family. I got Mrs. Opal. I got a vet. And I got you, if you want to be in my life." "I do," she said firmly. "I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, sweet girl." That night, I barely slept. I kept expecting the police to show up or Tanya to bang on my door. But the night stayed quiet. The next morning, Aaliyah and I made breakfast together. Pancakes and bacon, just like I used to make for her mama when she was little. We were sitting at the table eating when the doorbell rang. It was Tanya, and Darnell, and Quincy, all three of them, standing on my porch looking serious. "We need to talk," Darnell said. I let them in. Aaliyah stayed at the kitchen table, suddenly very interested in her pancakes. My children stood in my living room looking uncomfortable. This was the first time they'd all been in my house together since the will reading. "Aaliyah needs to come home," Tanya said, but her voice was less angry now, more tired. "Do you want to go home, baby?" I called to Aaliyah. She appeared in the doorway, looking between her mother and me. "Only if Mama stops saying mean things about Grandma." Tanya flinched. "I wasn't saying mean things." "Yes, you were," Aaliyah said, braver than I'd ever seen her. "You said Grandma was selfish and ungrateful and going to die alone. You said she chose money over us. But that's not true. You're the ones who cared about the money. Grandma just wanted to be loved." Out of the mouths of babes. My 3 children stood there speechless, as their 12-year-old niece spoke the truth they'd been avoiding. "Is that really how you see it?" Darnell asked Aaliyah. "That's how everybody sees it," Aaliyah said. "Everybody at church knows what happened. They talk about how you all were fighting over Grandma's stuff while she was sick. They say it's shameful." Quincy's jaw tightened. "People at church are talking about us?" "Of course they are," I said. "You took your mama to court. What did you think would happen?" Silence, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, Tanya spoke. "Aaliyah, can you go back to the kitchen for a minute? We need to talk to Grandma alone." Aaliyah looked at me. I nodded. She left, but I could tell she was listening from the kitchen. Tanya sat down first, then Darnell, then Quincy. All 3 of them, sitting on that couch again. "Ma," Tanya started, her voice breaking. "I haven't been able to sleep since the court case. I keep hearing that recording, hearing my own voice talking about your things while you were in that hospital bed." Darnell rubbed his face. "I keep trying to justify it, tell myself we were just being practical, planning ahead. But the truth is, we were wrong. We were so wrong. We got greedy, Quincy said quietly. We saw dollar signs instead of our mama. I sat in my chair by the window and waited. This felt different than their other apologies. This felt real. When Aaliyah showed up last night, Tanya continued, I was so angry. But then I realized she was doing what I should have been doing all along, choosing you, putting you first, and I felt so ashamed. The recording hit me hard too, Darnell said. Hearing how we sounded, so cold, so calculating. Ma, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive us, Quincy added. I don't even know if I can forgive myself, but we needed to say it. We were wrong. You had every right to change your will. I looked at my 3 children, my babies who weren't babies anymore, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years, genuine remorse, real accountability. Do you know what hurt the most? I asked quietly. It wasn't the money talk. It was that you couldn't even wait. I wasn't dead yet. I was still breathing, still fighting, still hoping I'd beat the cancer. And you'd already written me off. Tanya started crying. Real tears this time, not manipulative ones. I was so scared, Mama, she whispered. Scared of losing you. And instead of dealing with that fear, I focused on practical things. Things I could control. Things that didn't hurt as much as thinking about you dying. Me too, Darnell admitted. I couldn't handle the thought of losing you, so I made it about logistics, about plans and paperwork. It was easier than feeling the feelings. I avoided it completely, Quincy said. Didn't visit because I couldn't face it. Then asked you for money because I'm a selfish idiot who doesn't know how to show love without taking. These were truths, hard truths, the kind that hurt to speak and hurt to hear. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said honestly. You broke my heart, all 3 of you. We know, Tanya said, and we don't expect you to just get over it. But Ma, can we try? Can we start over, even if it takes years? I thought about it, really thought about it. These were still my children. I'd carried them in my body, raised them with my hands, loved them with my whole heart. That doesn't just disappear, even when they disappoint you. But I also thought about Yvette, about how she'd shown up for me, about the will and the legacy I wanted to leave. Here's what's going to happen, I said. The will stays the same. Everything still goes to Yvette. That doesn't change. Their faces fell, but they nodded. But, I continued, if you want a relationship with me, a real relationship, not based on what you'll inherit, then we can work on that, slowly, with boundaries. What kind of boundaries? Darnell asked. No more asking about my finances. No more walking through my house pricing things. No more treating me like I'm already gone. You want to visit? Visit because you want to see me, not my stuff. We can do that, Quincy said. And you come to Sunday dinner, I said. Every Sunday that you're in town. We eat together. We talk. We rebuild. Like we used to, Tanya said softly. Like we should have kept doing, I corrected. They agreed, all 3 of them. Aaliyah came back in then, no longer pretending she wasn't listening. Does this mean we're a family again? We never stopped being a family, I said. We just forgot how to act like one. Over the next few weeks, things slowly shifted. My children started coming to Sunday dinners again. At first, it was awkward, stiff. We didn't know how to talk to each other anymore, but gradually, it got easier. We laughed again, shared stories, acted like a family. They brought the other grandchildren, Zion and Elijah. I hadn't seen Darnell's boys in months. They'd grown so much. We played in the backyard, and I showed them the garden, and it felt like healing. Tanya apologized to Yvette directly, which I appreciated. They met for coffee, and Tanya came back with red eyes but a lighter spirit. She's good people, Mama, Tanya said. I can see why you love her. Yvette came to Sunday dinner too. I insisted. She was family now, whether my children liked it or not. At first, it was tense. But Yvette brought her daughter, Amari, and the kids all played together. And gradually the adults relaxed. "You're still getting everything, you know," I told Yvette one day when we were alone in the kitchen. "Even though we're reconciling, the will stays the same." "Mrs. Caldwell, if you want to change it back—" "I don't," I said firmly. "You earned it. And more than that, it's insurance. If my kids backslide, if they get greedy again, they know they won't benefit from it. It keeps them honest." Yvette smiled. "You're a wise woman." "I'm a tired woman," I corrected, "but I'm learning to protect my peace." Pastor Hill preached about forgiveness one Sunday, about how forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing, but releasing the burden of bitterness. "You can forgive someone and still have boundaries," he said. "You can love someone and still protect yourself. That's not being unforgiving. That's being wise." I caught my children's eyes during that sermon. They were listening, really listening. After church, Darnell pulled me aside. "Ma, I want you to know. I told my boys about what happened, about how we treated you. I want them to learn from our mistakes." "What did you tell them?" I asked. "That we got greedy, that we took you for granted, that we almost lost you because we focused on things instead of people. I told them that people are always more important than possessions." My eyes filled with tears. "That's good, baby. That's real good." "I'm teaching them different than how I acted," he said. "I'm making sure they know how to value family." That meant more to me than any apology. Quincy started paying me back the money he'd borrowed over the years. Small amounts, $50 or $100 at a time, with notes attached. For the loan in 2015. For the money I said I'd pay back in 2018. For taking advantage of your generosity. I didn't need the money, but I accepted it because I knew he needed to give it. Needed to make amends in a tangible way. Tanya started calling me every day. Not to ask for anything, just to talk, to check in, to tell me about her day. "I missed you, Mama," she said one night. "I didn't realize how much until I almost lost you for good." "I'm still here, baby," I said, "and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon." My cancer stayed in remission. Dr. Harrison said I was doing remarkably well. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," he said. What I was doing was living, really living, surrounded by people who loved me, setting boundaries, protecting my peace, choosing joy. Mrs. Opal and I still sat on her porch some evenings, drinking sweet tea and watching the neighborhood. "You did good, Bernie," she said one night. "Stood your ground, taught your children a lesson, and still found room for forgiveness." "I'm still scared they'll backslide," I admitted. "Maybe they will," she said. "People aren't perfect. But you showed them consequences. That matters. They know now that your love isn't unconditional in the sense that they can treat you any kind of way. There are standards." "My mama used to say, 'Don't mistake my kindness for weakness,'" I said. "Smart woman, your mama." One Sunday in June, exactly a year after I'd changed my will, I gathered my whole family in my living room. My children, my grandchildren, Yvette and Amari, Mrs. Opal, Pastor Hill and First Lady Corinne, and several church members. I stood in the middle of my living room with a piece of paper in my hand. "I want to read you something," I said. "It's a letter I wrote to myself last year when I was at my lowest point." I unfolded the paper and read, "Dear Bernie, right now you feel broken. Your children have disappointed you. Your body has betrayed you. You feel alone and scared and hurt. But remember this, you are stronger than you know. You survived poverty and widowhood and raising 3 children alone. You survived cancer. You will survive this heartbreak too. And on the other side, you'll find peace. You'll find people who value you. You'll find your worth again. Don't give up. Don't settle for being treated poorly. Demand better. Expect better. And if your children can't give you better, find family elsewhere. Because you deserve love. real love. The kind that shows up, the kind that stays, the kind that values you for who you are, not what you have. You are worthy of that love. Don't ever forget it. Love yourself. The room was silent. I folded the letter back up. This year taught me a lot, I said. It taught me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the nurse who holds your hand during chemo. Sometimes it's the neighbor who checks on you every day. Sometimes it's the church family who shows up when your children don't. I looked at Yvette, at Mrs. Opal, at Pastor Hill, at the people who'd carried me through the hardest year of my life. But it also taught me, I continued, looking at my children now, that people can change, that remorse can be real, that forgiveness is possible, even when the hurt is deep. Tanya was crying. Darnell was trying not to. Quincy was looking at his hands. My will isn't changing, I said clearly. Everything still goes to Yvette. But that's not a punishment anymore. It's a legacy. Yvette will use that house, that money, to build a better life for her and Amari. She'll pass down different values than the ones my children learned from watching me sacrifice myself to nothing. I turned to Yvette. When I'm gone, I want you to keep this house in the family. Let Amari grow up here. Let her know that hard work and kindness pay off, that showing up for people matters, that love is action, not just words. I will, Yvette promised, tears streaming down her face. I promise. And you three, I said to my children, your inheritance isn't money. It's lessons. It's knowing that you can mess up and still make it right. It's understanding that people are more valuable than possessions. It's learning to show up. Those lessons are worth more than any house or bank account. We know, Ma, Darnell said. We finally know. I sat down, exhausted but satisfied. Aaliyah came and sat beside me, took my hand. I'm proud of you, Grandma. I laughed. Baby, I'm supposed to say that to you. I can be proud of you too, she said wisely. You stood up for yourself. That takes courage. This child. This beautiful, wise child. We had dinner then. A big Sunday dinner like the old days. Fried chicken and collard greens and macaroni and cheese and cornbread and sweet potato pie. The food covered every surface of my kitchen and dining room. We crowded around the table, some sitting, some standing, some taking plates to the living room. We blessed the food and we ate and we laughed and we told stories. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of awkwardness, still places where the hurt showed through. But it was real. It was honest. It was family. After everyone left, I stood in my kitchen washing dishes with Yvette and Mrs. Opal. You did good today, Mrs. Opal said. I just told the truth, I said. That's the hardest thing to do, Yvette said. Tell the truth and stand in it. I looked around my kitchen, at the dishes that proved I'd fed people who loved me, at the leftovers that would feed me all week, at the home I'd built with my own hands and my own sweat. This was mine, my peace, my space, my legacy. And whether my children inherited it or not, they'd inherited something more valuable, the knowledge that love requires action, that kindness matters, and that you can forgive without being a fool. That night, I sat in my chair by the window and looked out at my garden. The roses were blooming. The tomatoes were coming in. Everything I'd planted was growing. I thought about the journey, from that hospital hallway to this moment, from heartbreak to healing, from betrayal to boundaries, from loss to love. I'd survived cancer. I'd survived my children's greed. I'd survived my own broken heart. And I was still here, still standing, still loved. My phone buzzed. A text from Tanya. Thank you for dinner, Mama. Thank you for not giving up on us. I love you. Then Darnell. Ma, you're the strongest woman I know. Thank you for teaching us what real strength looks like. Then Quincy. Love you, Ma. See you next Sunday. I smiled and set my phone down. the will would stand. Yvette would inherit my earthly possessions, but my children were inheriting something better, a second chance. A lesson in humility, a model of what it means to value yourself enough to demand respect. Whether they continued to learn from it was up to them. But I'd done my part. I'd stood firm. I'd protected my peace. I'd forgiven without compromising my dignity. And that, I realized, was the real inheritance. Not for them, but for me. I'd given myself permission to value my own life, to demand better, to choose peace over people-pleasing. I'd given myself liberation. And as I sat there in my chair, in my house, surrounded by the echoes of laughter from people who truly loved me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt free. The next morning I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window and birds singing in the garden. I got dressed, made coffee, and sat on my porch watching the neighborhood wake up. Mrs. Opal came out on her porch with her own coffee. We waved at each other, a simple gesture that meant everything. My phone rang. Dr. Harrison's office, calling with my latest test results. "Mrs. Caldwell, your scans are clear. The cancer is still in remission. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." "I will," I promised. "I definitely will." I hung up and closed my eyes, feeling the morning sun on my face, and I thanked God for second chances, for hard lessons, for the courage to stand up for myself, for the wisdom to forgive without forgetting, for the grace to keep living, keep loving, keep fighting. I was 72 years old. I'd buried a husband, raised 3 children, survived cancer, and fought for my dignity in a courtroom. And I was still here, still growing, still blooming like those roses in my garden. My children would be okay, my grandchildren would be okay, Yvette would be okay, and most importantly, I would be okay. Because I'd learned the most valuable lesson of all, that you can't pour from an empty cup, that loving yourself isn't selfish, that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors that only open for people who know how to respect them, that you can lose everything and still have everything that matters. As I sat there on my porch, coffee in hand, sunshine on my face, peace in my heart, I thought about the title of my story. When I got sick, my children fought over my belongings, so I changed my will during treatment. But really, the story wasn't about the will. It was about finding my will to stand up, my will to demand better, my will to live on my own terms. And that will, that strength, that dignity, that was the real inheritance I was leaving behind. Not just for Yvette or my grandchildren, but for anyone who's ever felt taken for granted. Anyone who's ever been valued for what they have instead of who they are. Anyone who's ever had to choose between peace and people-pleasing. Choose peace. Every time. Choose peace. That's my story. That's my testimony. That's my legacy. And I'm sticking to it. Thank you for staying with us through this journey. Please subscribe for more stories and drop a comment. We read every single one.